Big Finish are the tits. If you're a Doctor Who fan and you've never heard of Big Finish somehow, then allow me to fill you in. They're a small independent company of massive passionate Whovians who come together a couple of times a month and write more innovative stories than the actual TV series has been able to churn out. As well as, in some cases, changing the very fabric of Doctor Who canon in groundbreaking ways. And they've been doing that since before the fucking millennium. Big Finish do have other dedicated projects as well, such as their Blake 7 and Dark Shadow stuff, but they're best known for their Doctor Who work. If you want to dive headfirst into Big Finish expecting to sort it all up with ease, then you clearly have no idea just how much depth to the Whoniverse Big Finish has created over the years. Like, before I get into this top 10 properly, I'm just going to fill you in with what Big Finish's Doctor Who library looks like as of July 2016. First off, there's the monthly range, where one new story is released every month, starring either the 5th, 6th, 7th or 8th Doctor, which has been around since July 1999 with the Sirens of Time, and is still going to this day with their 214th release, A Life of Crime. Paul McGann came in to reprise the role of the 8th Doctor in 2001's Storm Warning, and in 2007 he got a new range called the 8th Doctor Adventures, which was comprised of shorter, tighter episodes, similar to the new series format of storytelling, as a means to snag new listeners. McGann has 4 series in this range, from Blood of the Daleks in 2007 to the Death in 2011. McGann then moved on to the Dark Eyes saga, which ran for 4 box sets, and is now a part of the Doom Coalition saga, which will eventually have 4 box sets, before November 2017, where the 8th Doctor The Time War box set comes out, which will act as a prequel to the 4 box sets based on the War Doctor that will have come out by then. Next, there's the 4th Doctor Adventures range, which started in 2012, and is currently in its 5th season, with a 6th season planned for 2017. This year has also seen the 10th Doctor come to Big Finish in 3 original adventures. What about the earlier Doctors though? The ones who are kinda dead? Well, if you're a 3rd Doctor fan, there's already been a box set starring Tim Treloar impersonating Jon Pertwee, which is going to have a 3rd box set by July 2017. The 1st, 2nd and 3rd Doctors though all have their own little ranges. I say little, they're actually fucking gargantuan. The Companion Chronicles and Early Adventures ranges cover this region of Doctor Who canon, where an actor or actress who has previously played one of the Doctor's companions narrates a past adventure. The Companion Chronicles have just released their 10th series, with the 2nd Doctor Volume 1 box set, whereas the Early Adventures will have a 5th series by 2018. Right, okay, so next is the Lost Stories range, where previously unused scripts from the classic series have been reworked and adapted into audio dramas. There's 4 series of those. There's the novel adaptations, where BBC and Virgin New Adventures novels have been worked into audio dramas. There'll be 11 of those, if all goes to plan, by December 2016. There's 8 Unbound adventures, which ask hypothetical what-ifs about the show. There's 3 adaptations of Doctor Who stage plays, 6 series of short trips, where again a companion narrates a smaller adventure, with a 7th series planned for those. Wait a minute, there's 11 Destiny of the Doctor plays, featuring the 1st to the 11th Doctors in one loose overarching storyline. There's, let's see now, dozens of special limited edition exclusive and bonus releases, all sorts of spin-offs based on other bits of Whoniverse lore and characters, such as Bernice Summerfield. She has 11 seasons and 8 box sets, if you want to include the upcoming Unbound universe set. Wait a minute, there's the Gallifrey series, yes of course, that features Romana and Leela on Gallifrey. There's 8 seasons of that. There's 4 series based on Unit, with another 2 to come. There's 12 series based on the talents of Weng Chiang's side character double act, Jago and Lightfoot, and that will be as of October 2016, and it also doesn't include their Companion Chronicle story, The Mahogany Murders, or their 2 Voyage adventures with the 6th Doctor, or their one-off release featuring Strax. There will be 6 series by the end of the year for Countermeasures. You might not know who they are. They're the friendly military group from Remembrance of the Daleks. So yes, 6 series for those, and 3 series for Torchwood. You might be more familiar with them. That'll be by November 2016. By the start of 2017, you'll have 2 box sets based on River Song, also starring the 8th, 6th and 7th Doctors, and also by then you'll have 2 box sets based on Winston Churchill. I keep going. How's about the 8th Doctor's original Big Finish companion, Charlie Pollard? Well, she'll have 2 seasons of her own by March 2017. And don't worry if you haven't heard of Charlie, because there's Sarah Jane, who has 2 seasons of her own as well. And if you don't like Sarah Jane and you much prefer Jo Grant, well, Katie Manning has Iris Wildtime, another of her characters, who has 4 series based on her own by January 2017. And if you want to hear what the baddies are getting up to, then you've got Davros, you've got the Daleks, you've got the Cybermen. And if you think... Sorry. If you think all of this video has been ridiculous so far, then the final nails in the coffin are the Graceless and Vienna spin-offs. Graceless is based on sisters Abby and Zara, who are side characters and were created by the thing that created the Key to Time and appeared in the Key to Time series. These side characters have had 3 series with a 4th planned for January 2017. Then there's Vienna, which is even more ridiculous because it's based on a side character from one Big Finish release called the Shadow Heart, and it's had 3 series. And that's pretty much it. Not a lot, really. The point is, Big Finish have pushed so many boundaries for Doctor Who and added so much to the lore that they're really fucking hard to ignore. In this top 10 video, I'm going to look at what things Big Finish could do next, what impacts they could make on the Whoniverse, and what possible projects they could work on in the future. After all, they have a license which grants them access to making Doctor Who related productions until 2025. That massive list I've just spent the last couple of minutes reading to you didn't even reach the 2020s. So fasten your seatbelt, rob a few banks, and stick $4 grand on the lottery, as you're gonna need it, for ConManWho's top 10 possible Big Finish releases. I'm just going to say now that I'm not going to put getting the 9th, 11th and 12th Doctors involved, because that comes as pretty much obvious. This is going to be a little bit more specific than that. Anyway, number 10. An adaptation of The Girl Who Loved Doctor Who. If there's one thing you can definitely say about Big Finish, it's that some of their output has been completely fucking bonkers. Since the Big Finish format is audio, you can literally do anything at little to no cost. And there's also people who argue that some regions of Big Finish isn't official canon, so they've been able to release some off-the-wall material. Probably the standout in this category is the Unbound series, one-off stories asking, what if the person who was meant to write Doctor Who never did? What if the Doctor never left Gallifrey? What if the Doctor never became the unit's scientific advisor? And so on. Even some of the standard releases can be weird and quirky, like The One Doctor, which sees the 6th Doctor and Mel on a quest for a set of shelves that can never be assembled, a computer that uses a hologram to take the form of an old man, and a crystal guarded by a giant talking jelly monster. And with all this in mind, I say that The Girl Who Loved Doctor Who would make a great addition to the Big Finish library, regardless of if it would be canon or not. The original story was the final comic strip published by IDW, who produced many strips between 2007 and 2013. And it basically features the 11th Doctor ending up in our universe, where he discovers that all of his adventures are a TV show and are on DVD. He comes across a 10-year-old girl called Ali who is a massive fan of the show and has to come to terms that he is a fictional character while battling a monster at Ali's school. It's just mental. Like, the Doctor ends up going to a Doctor Who convention and even bumps into Matt Smith, telling him that Peter Capaldi would make a great choice for the Doctor, having apparently met Capaldi before and saving him from a mandrill. And he's also met Peter Davison before and saved him from a crinoid. An adaptation of this needs to happen. It's just got all the wacky fun that Big Finish can really excel at, and it would be a breath of fresh, interesting air. Number 9. Vietnam. When it comes to historical adventures, Big Finish always seem to do a really good job. In the show, most historical stories are set in well-known areas or involve well-known people. Going back to season 1, you had a story about cavemen, Marco Polo, Aztecs, and the French Revolution. The new series more often than ever takes an easy ride with historical figures like Shakespeare, Van Gogh, Dickens, and Agatha Christie. Though Moffat did have a brilliant stab at the lesser-known Madame de Pompadour and exceeded brilliantly. Big Finish tends to go for these lesser-known areas of history as well, such as the Marian Conspiracy, based on Queen Mary I, who is definitely not as well known as Queen Victoria or Queen Elizabeth I. Even their more recent releases go for more niche periods, like the Peterloo Massacre, which is set during the Industrial Revolution in Manchester, and the upcoming release Fiesta of the Damned is going to be set during the Spanish Civil War. With this, I'd love to see Big Finish tackle a bigger historical fish than the TV series ever could with the Vietnam War. I don't know why, but I've always been attracted to the Vietnam War, having studied it in secondary school, and I just found it absolutely fascinating. In terms of the big wars, Doctor Who has done both world wars, which were horrific atrocities, but the Vietnam War was definitely far more graphic and bloody to ever be recreated in a visual format, in terms of Doctor Who that is. Big Finish have proven over the years with releases like Red and Project Twilight that you can write incredibly dark stuff that really couldn't air on a Saturday evening. When I say I want to see Doctor Who does Vietnam, it doesn't mean I want to have heads being blown off and people being horrifically tortured. However, Doctor Who is a show about time travel, and the Vietnam War is one of the most prominent wars in recent memory. If handled with maturity and not going overboard with the violence, then something could work. I can just imagine a scene in my head of the Doctor being sat down and forced to play Russian roulette, Deer Hunter style, and I get tense trying to think of how he'd get out of it. The Doctor did go to Vietnam briefly in Renaissance of the Daleks, but has never had a full adventure there. This one is very unlikely, hence its lower place on the list, but either way, it's just a thought. Number 8. New series novel adaptations. Over the years, Big Finish has taken several books previously published by either the BBC or Virgin and adapted them into full cast audio dramas, and they always do really well with them. The new series though has such a rich range of novels that are far above the quality of what you'd expect. They are a lot more serious and imaginative than what the TV series regularly puts out, and there's some stories that I'd just love to hear with a full cast behind them. Since David Tennant is officially on board with Big Finish, I'll see a couple of 10th Doctor books I'd love to see. The first is The Eyeless, which sees the Doctor land on a planet that's in the fallout of a super powerful cannon that went off 15 years previously, and the survivors are trying to rebuild the population while hiding from the mysterious ghosts that protect the weapon and patrol the city. The Doctor's there to find the weapon and put it out of use, while there's a race of glassy beings called the Eyeless who want to find the weapon for themselves. Another great story is The Doctor Trap, which is a great blend of thriller and black comedy. There's an intergalactic game hunter called Sebastian who goes around hunting all sorts of different species for sport, and the one he wants as his biggest prize the most is a Time Lord. And the last book I'm going to mention is Forever Autumn, which is set in a New England town in the middle of celebrating Halloween, where a nightmarish force arises and strange creatures lurk the streets. Seriously, if you're a Doctor Who fan who likes reading, check these books out, and there's a lot more where they came from. Number 7. A Sea Devil story. I bloody love the Sea Devils. They're one of my favourite monsters from Classic Who, mainly based on how they look and because I love anything to do with sea creatures. In terms of characterisation, they are basically just the Silurians in different rubber costumes, but I can look past it because they're humanoid terrapins who wear fishnet dressing gowns and have heat rays. I'm really happy the Sea Devils haven't made the jump to New Who just yet because of just how many brilliant classic monsters have been treated. But I still want to get the Sea Devils involved in some way. Now admittedly the Sea Devils did appear in a Bernice Summerfield story, The Poison Seas, but I want to see them encounter another classic Doctor. Number 6. First and second Doctor impersonators. We've seen with the Third Doctor Adventures set that it is possible to have an actor impersonate a Doctor and essentially have the closest thing possible to a full cast audio drama. Tim Treloar debuted in Big Finish's 50th anniversary special, The Light at the End, and was absolutely bollocked by listeners who thought his Pertwee impression was wank. Recently though, Treloar has stepped up and is getting better. I'd love to see the first and second Doctors get the same treatment. I know that Fraser Hines' Pat Troughton impression is absolutely phenomenal, but the second Doctor stories are still in the Companion Chronicles format of having a companion narrating the events rather than a flowing full cast drama like Big Finish's monthly range. It would be interesting to have more first and second Doctor stories in a more fluid, in-the-moment format. Even if they got Fraser Hines to do Troughton and they got David Bradley to play Hartnell or something, even if it was just for a box set each, it would be interesting. Number 5. A Third Doctor Cyberman story. Speaking of Tim Treloar and the Third Doctor Adventures range, this needs to happen. Other than the War Doctor, the Third Doctor is the only one to not have had a proper Cyberman story. Granted, he tackled the Cybermen in the Five Doctors, but it was only briefly and most people wouldn't count it. There was the companion chronicle story The Blue Tooth, which does technically feature the Third Doctor and the Cybermen, but again it's narrated by the companion, in this case the late Caroline John as Liz. If we could get a Trelaw story featuring the Cybermen, that'd be fucking awesome. Number 4. A proper 7th Doctor send-off story. The Last Adventure was a special release that gave the 6th Doctor the swan song that he deserved. Having Sylvester McCoy in a wig twat his head off the console simply had no dignity whatsoever for such an underrated Doctor. But The Last Adventure gave Colin his last hurrah in a brilliant way. There was the novel Spiral Scratch, which also gave the 6th Doctor a proper final story, and it is very good, but The Last Adventure is a better send-off in my opinion. Of course we know exactly how the 7th Doctor dies, so there isn't a gap where you could slot in your own ideas like you could have done with the off-screen moments before the beginning of Time in the Rani. But I still feel like McCoy didn't really get a last hurrah either, and the canon is wide open to be written. A grand epic scale story like The Last Adventure, but for the 7th Doctor, set right before the events of the movie, would be a lovely thing to do for a brilliant Doctor. Or they could just adapt Lungbarrow. Please. Number 3. Bridging the gap between the War Games and Spearhead from Space. A little fact here if you didn't already know, the regeneration scene at the end of the War Games isn't a regeneration scene. There's actually a massive string of adventures that come afterwards, with the 2nd Doctor being picked up by the Celestial Intervention Agency and given some tasks. Chronologically, the 2nd Doctor in the Two Doctors is from after the War Games, and it's the agency who send him to help the 6th Doctor. Big Finish could relish at the opportunity to dive into this realm of the Doctor's time stream and give the 2nd Doctor a proper regeneration story. Number 2. Bridging the gap between the Day of the Doctor and Rose. Again, this one is vital. The 9th Doctor has been well and truly ripped off because we haven't been able to see what happens between this moment and this moment. Chronologically, the Churchill years story, The Oncoming Storm, is set before Rose, but it doesn't feature Eccleston specifically. If Big Finish could somehow work a deal to get Eccleston on board for a couple of releases like they have with Tennant, then this should be the first thing to do. Even if it was just one release, like the 9th Doctor's first proper story from his perspective, that would be absolutely fantastic. Sorry about that. And finally, number 1. A 4th and 10th Doctor team-up. Look at any poll that says Doctors ranked best to worst, and the top 2 are almost always Tom Baker and David Tennant. And now they're both on Big Finish's payroll. The idea of having the 2 most popular Doctors ever would make Big Finish shed loads of money. Because regardless of how you feel about the 4th and 10th Doctors, if you adore them or if you find them overrated, they are the Doctors of their points in time. When people mention the classic series, it's like Tom is the truly synonymous Doctor, whereas whether the new series is brought up, most people gravitate towards Tennant. They simply just are the show's iconic Doctors. Also, I don't think there'd ever be an opportunity to do something like this again other than right now. It hurts to say it, it really does, but on a serious note, how many years does Tom have left in him? This one audio play would take a couple of hours, but it would be one of the most successful and fandom-shattering things to have ever came out of any of the show's mediums. Now, Big Finish, be like Nike, and just do it.